and today's movie opens as Trevor wakes up from a horrible nightmare about his brother Max being swallowed into the depths of the earth. Trevor then goes to work as a professor, and after he finishes up class, he heads down to the lab where he meets Alan, who was waiting for him in his office. Alan tells Trevor that the school is going to pull the plug on his brother's research, which Trevor is shocked to hear. Trevor argues that the research needs to continue, but Alan is adamant about his decision. That afternoon, Trevor goes home feeling discouraged about the news that he heard, and he slumps on his chair and goes through his messages when he realizes that his sister-in-law and nephew were coming to see him. His sister-in-law knocks at the door while he hurriedly tries to clean up his messy house, and he opens the door and greets her, and his sister-in-law immediately knows that Trevor had forgotten their plans. Trevor then goes up to the car to meet his nephew Sean, who was very unhappy about spending 10 days there. Trevor tries to bond with his estranged nephew, but to no avail, when they run into Max's old stuff, who was also Sean's father. Trevor tells Sean that his father was a great guy, and while rummaging through the box, Trevor stumbles upon Max's favorite book, Journey to the Center of the Earth. While going through the book, Trevor sees statistics that Max wrote down, which matches the ones that he was seeing earlier in his lab. He decides to take Sean and check out his lab to make sure, and there he finds that he was right about the statistics that he saw in Max's notes. Sean notices an extra dot on the map displayed on Trevor's computer and mentions it to him, and Trevor, who was surprised to see the extra blip on the map now pointing at Iceland, decides to go there to investigate. Trevor tells Sean that he should have sent him to Canada, to his mother, because he thinks that Max had gone there after seeing the same statistics 10 years ago before his disappearance. He and his father were discussing the possibility of the existence of volcanic tubes that went straight to the center of the Earth. Trevor tells Sean that he needs to find out what happened to Max, and Sean convinces Trevor not to send him back to his mom, but instead convinces him to take him along. After purchasing a plane ticket, Trevor and Sean head straight to Iceland. In the plane, Trevor tries to decipher a clue that he thinks Max left, but he finds out that it wasn't a clue but a name of a man who was the director of a progressive volcanic institute. After reaching Iceland, the two rent a car and head toward the institute. Later in the day, Trevor and Sean finally reach the institute, which actually looks like a small shack. They then knock at the door and meet the very beautiful red-haired Hannah. They ask about the director of the institute, and Hannah informs them that the director, who was also her father, was dead, and she tells them that her father's research was considered a failed science. She then invites them in and offers them hot cocoa while they discuss the book, Journey to the Center of the Earth. Hannah tells them that the book had followers that believed what the author wrote about what was true, and they were called variants. And hearing this, Trevor had a hard time believing that his brother was part of some secret society. Hannah asks him what they're doing there, and Trevor explains that he was following cosmic activity all over the world, which apparently led him there. She tells Trevor that there are no roads to the north, but since she's a mountain guide, she can take them there for a price. Trevor agrees to this, and they start their journey the very next morning. They make it up to one of the mountains where they find a sensor Max placed there, then while Trevor tries to unlock the sensor to access the data it accumulated over the past 10 years, a sudden storm starts to brew in the sky. Hannah tells Trevor that they have to go and takes Sean to hide in a cave, and Trevor manages to get the sensor out of the ground and tries to make his way to them, but lightning strikes near him, and Hannah tells him to drop the sensor because it's the one that's attracting the lightning. And although he didn't want to, Trevor drops the sensor and drives into the cave just as the lightning strikes the wall and collapses the cave, leaving them trapped inside. They try to dig their way out, but Hannah tells them that it's no use. The group then decides to find another way out of the cave and start walking, and as they follow Trevor through one of the tunnels, Trevor almost falls into a giant hole but is saved by Hannah. The rattled Trevor finds an old sign on the floor that said "Keep Out," and Hannah is convinced that it's a good sign because she believes that they're heading toward an old mine shaft that could lead them to the surface. Trevor lights a flare to check the depth of the hole and finds out that it was 200 feet deep. Hannah then prepares rope and they all slowly lower themselves down into the hole. Inside they find an old mine that was closed after a disaster. They also find a generator, and when Hannah starts it, it lights the whole place up. They then get on one of the carts used to transport coal and they start their journey while Hannah paddles it manually. Suddenly, the group is propelled down a long railway at dangerous speed as it takes a zigzag type of route. Down the line, the three are separated in 3 different directions as the railway separates, and at a distance, Trevor notices that Hannah's track ends, and in a panic, she makes a jump into his cart. Although he managed to save her life, they realize that Trevor's track was headed toward a dead end. Hannah comes up with a crafty way of stopping them from propelling directly into a wall, and Sean finally arrives and stops slowly next to them. He notices an opening that the crashed cart had made, and they all head inside of it, where they find thousands of diamonds, emeralds, and other expensive gems. Trevor and Hannah are shocked at the sight in front of them, while Sean tries to take some of the diamonds on the wall. Suddenly, the ground starts to crack and they realize that they were standing on a muscovite. While trying to slowly go back where they came from, a diamond falls from Sean's bag and breaks the ground, causing them to fall. After what seemed like minutes of falling, they drop onto what looks like a naturally occurring water slide, and they then get inside the water. And in a bit, they manage to swim out to the edge and rest. While laying on their backs, they notice little glowing bird-like creatures flying on the roof. Trevor informs them that he had only seen these animals in museums because they've been extinct for 150 million years now. They follow the birds into a tunnel that reveals a whole world hidden in the center of the earth. They are shocked by what they are seeing, and they decide to look around in hopes of finding a way out. Trevor compares the things he sees to the book and finds them very accurate, and Hannah asks him whether the dangerous parts of the book were true as well, and Trevor was apparently concerned about that too. As they walk around, they found a hollowed tree that they assume the author of the book lived in. Sean finds a notebook that belongs to his father in a satchel, proving that Max indeed managed to make it there. Outside, Hannah calls out to Trevor and informs him that she thinks that she's found Max's dead body. They bury the body by the ocean, while Trevor reads out notes that had been written by Max about his son. Sean cries, sad that he would never be able to know his father, and the group goes back to the hollowed out tree and discuss the conditions in the underground world. Trevor explains that the temperatures down there could easily reach 200 degrees, and they try to devise an escape plan by following Max's idea. Max explained that there's a river that could be used to return to the surface just after crossing the ocean. The group then start working on a makeshift boat that they could use to cross the ocean, and after they were done, they start their journey. On their way, the conditions of the environment start to change and they start to face a rainstorm. And suddenly, they start being attacked by flesh-eating piranhas and giant sea creatures. With Trevor's leadership, they manage to steer clear of the monsters, but Sean ends up being propelled up into the air while he tries to save the sails from breaking free of the boat. In the morning, Sean wakes up by the shore and he calls out to his uncle, but no one answers. He then comes across one of the luminescent birds and follows it into one of the tunnels. Trevor and Hannah finally make it to shore, and they decide to head toward the river where they think that they would find Sean. On their way, they're attacked by large carnivore plants and they fight to get away. They then get to the river and yell out for Sean, and with no signs of him, Trevor decides to go looking for his nephew and tells Hannah to continue toward the river. Sean follows his compass south toward the river and happens upon a sandy area where the remainings of a large animal lay. Out of nowhere, he hears the sounds of growling and hides behind a rock. As he stood there, he looks up and sees a giant dinosaur hovering above him. The dinosaur attacks and Sean runs to save his own skin. From the other side of the cave, Trevor hears Sean's screams and comes to rescue him, and he manages to get him out as they run with the dinosaur still chasing them. Trevor runs toward the muscovite in an attempt to lead the dinosaur away from them and save Sean's life. And the dinosaur closely misses Trevor as the floor breaks and it falls into the depths. Trevor and Sean then make their way to the river, which they find had started to boil. In a close distance, they see Hannah floating in a giant dinosaur skull coming toward them, and they hop on as she paddles them to safety. The water then evaporates due to the heat in the caves, and the geyser has also disappeared. The group then fall into one of the holes and get stuck and see magma under them. As they panic to come up with ideas, Trevor notices the walls were wet and realizes that there must be water behind the walls. He remembers the magnesium-covered walls and decides to use a flare to explode the walls and let out the water so that the steam can push them out of the caves. Hannah lowers Trevor down so he can find a dry part of the wall to light the magnesium, and Trevor makes a throw, and just as the wall ignites, the water spills directly into the magma. They are then pushed right out and hurtle together inside the skull. They slide down a grape field and onto some Italian farmer's doorstep, and the group is happy to be alive. Trevor and Hannah kiss while Sean offers the upset farmer one of the diamonds that he's taken from the caves below. Trevor returns to the city and starts his own institution for tectonic research from the large fortune that Sean was able to bring back. And the movie ends as Sean's mother comes to pick him up, and Trevor and Sean make other plans for another adventure for Christmas. And this is how the movie comes to an end.